Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make some fried pork tenderloins with tortellini and a Parmesan cream sauce and a peach crisp. So let's start by getting our peaches ready. I'm going to cut and we're going to kind of peel them off and put them in our Dutch oven to start cooking here. Got to get this pit out. I'm not a huge fan of peaches. I love the taste of peaches, but I do not like the skin. So peach crisps are where it's at. I can't eat a fresh peach because otherwise I have to peel it. I love their flavor, but that skin really gets me. So we're just going to peel. We're going to use our fresh peaches here. We've got about 6 of them. They're from like this local little stand. The guy who's where we got our little strawberries too, but he has really good produce. And so this will be delicious for a quick kind of little summer crumb crisp thing. So I'm just going to cut off. I'm not really working, making sure it's in anything. It's just give it a little peel and then just kind of slice off your bits of peaches while you can versus trying to make perfect little slices. Just do what's easiest. So we kind of cut it in half here, and then I'm going to just kind of give it a nice peel on the outside, get rid of that fuzz. And then we'll just kind of slice it off and get as much of it from the big pit as possible. And you just don't want to make sure you have any super thick pieces because you do want it to be nice and tender and juicy. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of cook these up with some sugar and lemon juice in our Dutch oven, which kind of starts the cooking process. And then we'll put our crumb on top and then bake it up. So it's kind of nice because you don't have to use multiple pans. You just use your Dutch oven for this and it'll bake up nicely. And it's easier than a pie because you don't have to make a pie crust. You see how we can just get these peaches off pretty quick here without having to, slice, then peel. So I kind of cut it in half. This one isn't breaking out for me as easy. And then we just peel off these skins, try to get as close to them as possible. And then we'll slice it off. But this is peach time, so got to think of lots of different peach recipes. If you've ever had grilled peaches, those are delicious too. Okay, so I've got our skin off. I'm just going to slice here all the way around, getting as close to that pit as possible because we don't want to waste any of the deliciousness. You can just see how juicy these are because they are just going everywhere. And so we're going to make a nice little peach crisp with this, kind of perfect little snack with our lunch. And then we're going to fry up some pork tenderloins. We're going to hammer them out, and then we're going to make a creamy tortellini and Parmesan cream sauce for it. Just a quick, easy lunch for my kiddos before we run off to soccer practice. And these peaches just had to be used. They were so good. They were looking at me and I was like, oh, what should we do today? And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do a muffin. I was like, we're going to do a crisp. It's crisp time anyways. I feel like that's just such a quintessential summer food. So let's get all of these good peaches off. You could also use frozen peaches with this. Just make sure you have enough time to thaw them out and you put them in there. That way you don't have to do quite as much extra work for it. But I will say, it is better with fresh. Let's pull these off. And we've got one more after this. So it doesn't take too long to actually slice them up. But I will say, peaches don't yield so much fruit. It's not like a watermelon where you get a bunch from it. But this will be a perfect little crisp for lunch for us. Don't want to lose any of my peaches here. And one more after this. This one's a little guy. And I'm just using a serrated paring knife just to kind of cut through it. It works really well. Gives you nice kind of tight cuts. And we'll peel this off. And then we're going to put these in our Dutch oven with about a half a cup of sugar, a squeeze of lemon juice, so about 1 to 2 tablespoons. That helps give you a nice tartness, a little bit of cinnamon, and a dash of nutmeg just to give you a nice kind of almost not quite an apple pie-esque thing, but that cinnamon and that little bit of that nutmeg just works really well with the peaches. And then a little pinch of salt here. Okay, so we've got our peaches. We're going to put them in our Dutch oven here. I probably could have even gone with a smaller one, but that is a-okay. So give my hands a quick wrench because they're pretty juicy. We're going to turn our back burner on, and I'm going to start warming it up. Let's add in our sugar. We're going to use some granulated sugar. I'm going to use probably, since we have a little bit less, I'm going to use about a third cup of sugar in here. We're going to sprinkle it over. This is going to help kind of create a nice little sauce, a sticky sauce that the peaches will be in. And then we are going to add in some fresh lemon juice. Fresh always works better. I'm going to pick out any of my seeds that I see right here, and we're aiming for about 1 to 2 tablespoons. So it's going to be, depending on how juicy your lemon is, it should be about 1 whole lemon. Squeeze. Missed a seed. Poke out any of my seeds here. Give this a nice squeeze. And this, I will say, this adds a nice kind of tartness to the peaches, helps really bring out their flavors that you can't quite get with just the peach juices. We're going to add a good shake of cinnamon here, just a nice little dusting over. It's probably less than a half of a teaspoon, but just a smidge. And then about a half a teaspoon of vanilla, a couple little drops over, and a little pinch of salt. There we go. And that salt just really is going to enhance the flavors of the peaches. We're going to give this a nice, good stir. And we want those nice kind of juices to come out and make kind of a really sticky sauce on it. We're not going to be using any cornstarch as a thickener in this at all because we want these juices to kind of soak up in our crumb that we're just about to make. Okay, let me slide this guy out of the way. And let's make our crumb to go on top of this. So we're going to start with a stick of butter melted. Make sure it all gets in here. And then we're going to add in a half a cup of brown sugar. The brown sugar is going to give you a richer streusel than just regular granulated sugar. And that kind of molasses undertone of the brown sugar pairs really well with the peaches. So we're going to give half a cup. Sprinkle off all of there. And then I'm going to give this a nice little stir before we add in any of our ingredients so that it kind of is easier to mix it in together. So we're going to give it just a little stir here. There we go. Just make sure if there's any clumps of brown sugar, just mix those out. And now we are going to add in about half a teaspoon of cinnamon. So a good couple of shakes here. You can measure it out if you want to. And then a really light pinch of nutmeg. The nutmeg is beautiful, but just a smidge because nutmeg has a pretty strong flavor. There we go. So not like a less than even a fourth of a teaspoon, just a little bit. It gives you that nice little kick. And then we're going to add in a half a teaspoon of baking powder. This is going to give it a little bit of a puff on it, which will just be lovely. So it's less dense than a regular kind of streusel topping. I'm going to add it in here. And then we're going to give this a nice mix. Make sure that baking powder kind of gets incorporated all over. There we go. And then we're going to add in a half a cup of oats and then last our flour. But I always wait to add in the flour because it's kind of harder to add the other ingredients and if you do that. Let's give our thing is giving a nice boil over here. This is the nice thing about doing it in the Dutch oven is you can get the starting cooking process on this and before it goes in the oven. So it kind of cuts down how long it needs to be in the oven. We're going to do about a half a cup of oats. And these are just good old-fashioned oats. Quick oats will work fine in this as well. I would I would not go with a steeled oats. Those are the harder ones, because then it's going to be a bit chewier, tougher. So old-fashioned or quick oats work best for this. Let's give this a good mix. And then we're going to add in a half a cup of flour. And then we'll see if we need any more after that. I always like to look at my texture of how it sits as my judgment for whether we need more flour or not. So we're going to mix this in to kind of make our little crumb topping to go on top of our thing. I think I'm going to add a smidge more because I want it to be a bit more crumbly than this. So just about another, not even a fourth of a cup more, maybe two or so tablespoons more. Let's see if this is getting to the right kind of crumb. You don't want it too wet because we do want it to soak up some of our peaches juice. There we go. Okay, there we go. We're getting kind of to the right kind of crumb texture here. And then we're going to I just add a light sprinkle of salt on the top. Just a pinch. I like it to kind of, instead of marry into the caramel, it just rests on the top of them. You get that flavor a bit more. But this is the texture we're looking for on our crumb. So it's got nice little chunks. Some of them are sticking together, but it's not a paste and it's not too powdery. Okay. Again, my hand. Let's look over here at our peaches. Beautiful. We're getting just a nice, you see it's already starting to thicken up, and that's just that sugar in there kind of turning to a syrup. I'm going to bring it, we're going to let it bubble for just a minute or so. Get another good bubble here. And while we're doing that, we can start making our seasoned dredge for our pork chops. Okay. And then we'll put our crumb topping on. So let me grab my flour because we're going to need that for our kind of seasoned dredge. So I think we're going to use, looking at my, probably a cup and a half of flour, just all-purpose flour. You want to make sure you have enough. I hate it when I underestimate and then I have to make more dredge during it. Okay. So we've got a cup and a half of flour. And then we are going to add in about a tablespoon of onion powder. So just a good kind of lump. Around a tablespoon of paprika. That way, this is going to give a nice savory flavor, but a nice kind of pop of color too. We want about a tablespoon of garlic salt. So I'm going to give it a couple of really good shakes to try to get that same amount. You can see a lot of shakes to get you there, but you don't want to skimp on it. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of this seasoning blend. It's just like Mrs. Dash's, but I got this one at Costco. So 1 and 2. And then we're going to add in some dried parsley, about a tablespoon as well. And I said, don't be afraid to use lots of spices. It gives you so much better flavor. And then about a tablespoon of oregano. So this is going to be our spice blend. We're just going to use the rest of that. For our pork chops here, it's going to have a lot of flavor. So let's give this a nice little stir. We will add some panko breadcrumbs after the initial dredging to give a nice little crunch when we fry it up, but this will be our good flavors. There we go. And I'm going for kind of a savory, just like an everything spice to it. It's, you know, I'm not leaning towards Italian or Cajun or anything, but just a good everything. Middle of the road, but well spiced, because that is where all your seasoning is coming from, is right now. Okay, let's look. We've got a good bubble coming over here on our crisp. Beautiful. So I'm going to turn my Dutch oven off, and we're going to put our crumb over here, and then we're going to pop this in the oven to bake. So we're just going to sprinkle it right on top. And this, I'll make sure I don't want to lose any of it. And then that's what will happen is that juices will soak up on the bottom layer, and then the top layer will crisp up wonderfully. There we go. Get all of that on here. Okay, let me grab my pot holders because that's probably a little bit hot. And we're going to pop this in the oven. I have it preheated to 375 minutes or 375 degrees, not minutes. That would be a long time. And then we're going to just let this bake for honestly probably until right when our lunch is ready. This can take anywhere between 20 to 35 minutes, just depending on how much juice comes out of those peaches. So we've got good timing, so we'll take it out right then. Luckily with crisps, they're not hard to mess up. So even if you underbake them, they'll be delicious. Yes, they are hard to mess up because they're not precise. You don't need to be precise with them. Let me just push some of this away, and let's get our pork chops going. I'm gonna whisk up our eggs so that we're ready, and then we're gonna hammer out our pork chops, and then we'll start getting them frying up, and then we'll throw in our tortellini to make our kind of Parmesan cream sauce. So I think 3 eggs should be fine with this. Give my hands a quick little rinse. We'll whisk them up. I'm gonna poke each yolk, and we'll give it a nice whisk until you have all of those yolks mixed into your egg whites. If you don't mix it up enough, if you look down in here, you can see like some egg whites. What will happen is when you try to bread it, those will stick and you'll have this big slimy egg white on there. So you want to make sure you have them all well mixed. So good fork and about 30 seconds to a minute of whisking should get you to the right consistency. Just don't want to have any of those big chunks of egg whites. Okay, we've got our pork tenderloins here. We are going to hammer them out to be nice and thin. That way they'll fry up nicely and be nice and tender. Good thing about pork tenderloins is they're pretty tender anyways. So, and then we'll do our nice little breading on them. We'll dredge them and then bread them. These I trimmed off of. I had some. We made like pork chops the other day and I had some left over. They were like thin bone-in ones, so I kind of trimmed them up to do this because all my kids complained about how hard it was to get the bone away. I always said I babied my kids too long that I'm like, my 15 and my 13-year-old, their knife skills, I'm like, geez, guys, you guys need to learn how to use a steak knife. So we're going to do a couple of good hammers through here, thin them out. This is going to allow them to cook evenly, quickly, without drying out, which is, always a big problem with pork. I find pork dries out. Oh, I forgot a bone on this one. Let me grab. That's my knife I'm going to use for my cutting up my herbs here. Don't want to leave this. One of my kids will get it, and then they'll be like, you tried to kill me. Just a small bone. Good thing we hammered them out. There we go. And I will say hammering them out makes them a little bit bigger too, makes them nice and tender. There we go. Okay, we are good with this. Let me give my hands a quick rinse. And let's start our oil warming up. I'm using a non-stick pan here. So we're going to get it warming up. These are Hexclad. I absolutely love Hexclad. actually truly are nonstick and they have yet to scratch, which is a big win. There we go. So we just want a nice kind of thin layer on it because this is going to have a breading on it. So we do want them to be submerged partially for it. Okay. Let's start with our dredging here. Before I open it up, let me prep this. So we're going to dredge our pork chops, which we'll be serving with our tortellini in a creamy Parmesan sauce with our peach crisp, which is baking up, which I'm excited for because it's our first kind of peach dish of the season. We made some nectarine muffins the other day, but hadn't had peaches yet. There we go. Good coating on it in our seasoned dredge.
Angel said she used the boiled egg punch thing and it worked great.
Oh, good. You know what? Those little gadgets, I love them. That, it pokes a little tiny hole in your egg and it really does help the shells come off nicely and cook a better, like, hard boiled egg. Here we go. I'll have to add that to my Amazon storefront. I just got approved from Amazon to create a storefront. So I was excited about that because so many people keep asking me about like these little different gadgets and whatnot that I use. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can make like a list that people could just go there and find exactly the ones that I have at home. So I finally got approved to make one. And I've been making little lists that have all the cool little gadgets that I use here in my kitchen. With my little like detailed kind of descriptions on why I like them. So I do have that ready there. I think we'll post a link or have a link for it. I do make a small commission off of it if you do guys buy anything of it, but it's more for me to get you guys to know exactly what I have because I can go through my shopping history. It's actually pretty cool. You go through your shopping history or what you bought and you can just add them to the lists. So it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat how technology helps you today. Okay, we've got all of ours dredged up here. So this first coating is really important because it really locks in those seasons and those flavors onto your pork chops. And it's going to allow the egg to stick on. If you try to just go egg first, then your seasoned mix, that egg is just going to slide right off. We're going to add in about 1.5 cups of our panko breadcrumbs here. And we're going to give a nice, mix it up. This is going to give you a nice crunchy breading for our little pork tenderloins here. So I'm going to mix it up. This is going to give you that crunch, which I think is going to pair really well with our Parmesan or tortellini here. So I'm going to start with this edge and spread it out. We're going to do, I always try to keep one hand clean during this process so that I can clean up. And if I need to do something, I have a free hand. So it's really hard in the beginning. It's really easy to try to go in with 2 hands, but trust me, do one hand. You're going to want that free hand because something always happens and you need a free hand and you don't want to try to grab something with your fingers completely covered in breadcrumbs. So we're going to just coat this guy up and you can just see how big they grow with the coating of it. They start small and they almost, I feel like they double in size. And if you're like Teddy, I love my little chef Teddy. He loves to just eat the breading off. And I'm like, you got to eat the pork chop or the chicken. You got to eat the protein. You can't just eat the delicious fried breading.
We'll post the sourdough today.
Oh, yes, we are going to post the sourdough, our first day of our sourdough video. We'll make a video and try to go through and describe all the steps in that sourdough starter for day 1 and the materials you're going to need for it. Because we've had so many questions about it.
Teddy's.
Oh, Teddy's sourdough. I thought you were talking about the other video. We have so many little things going on. Yes, Teddy's little video. We are going to post it. We have it all edited up. It's super cute. I actually was showing it to my mom and my aunt, and they were just like, I can't believe he made a real loaf of bread. They don't know anything about the sourdough making process. So it's really interesting because things that I think are just like common knowledge, they're like, no, I have no idea. And I was like, I guess if you don't know it, like, you know what I mean? If you've never done it, and it was like a learning curve, but it wasn't hard. It was a great journey. I have to say, I've loved my sourdough making journey. It's a lot of fun. And it's so creative. You can do so many things. with changing up the recipe without actually having to do a lot of changing, like with inclusions. And then woo, that was scary. There must have been a bubble of water in there. Wow, woo, I'm having a heart attack here. That almost got me. And this is why kitchens can be dangerous. There must have been a little drop of water in there or whatnot from when I filled up my pot. Well, I think this is hot. Let me check. It might be ready for me to put my first ones in. That's scary. Yes, we are ready. I'm going to turn it down. We're just going to drop these first set-ins, let them start cooking.
And that takes me back to the cabin.
That was very loud. I was not expecting. If I could, like, my heart is beating so fast right now, that just took me out. I didn't even realize that there must have been a little drop in there, but I'm sure when I filled it up, I could have splashed. That's what happens with water. Make sure your pans are dry before you put the oil in, because water will explode like that if you're not careful. And then, but that's one of the reasons why I do my drop test, is when I put a drop of water in, if it sizzles instantly, I know the oil is hot enough. Whew, I would say it's always an exciting adventure in the kitchen. Who says it isn't an adrenaline rushing experience? There we go. Good thing I was far enough away from that. And we've got 2 more. This is a little guy. Looks like I used just the right amount of eggs. And then we can start, I'm going to do a lean over. We can start turning up the water for our tortellini, bring it to a boil. Here we go. We'll get our last one in, and then I'm going to do a quick little cleanup. Okay, so let me get this last one coated. This is going to be these are our pork tenderloins that we're doing our nice breading on, which we'll be serving with some tortellini and a Parmesan cream sauce, because that is my kids' favorite way to do tortellini or any type of noodle. They just love those cream sauces. And then we've got our peach crumb in the oven. Let me get this wiped up real quick here. And get our little explosion here. But now we've got these crisping up. I have my oil. It was heating up at around an 8, and now I have it down to about a 5, because you don't want to cook it on too high or it will burn. So you do nice and low when you're frying your food, so that you get a golden crisp where it is also cooked all the way through. Also, why it's important to thin out your pork chops or your chicken or whatever protein you're using, so that it cooks quickly and evenly, versus if you do a really big one, then you risk the burning your pork chop or chicken. Let me get my baking sheet, and I'm going to line it with some paper towels, because I do like to remove anything I fry, and I like to put it on paper towels so it soaks up any of that olive oil, so that it gets nice and crispy versus greasy. Let's kind of clean up this mess a smidge. Ooh, our water over here has a great boil on it, so we're just going to add in some tortellini, just some good old store-bought tortellini. I'm going to put in, this is a whole package for it. We've got a big crew here. Tortellini is a great pasta in the sense that it cooks really fast, and it's always a crowd pleaser. We're going to clear this up, because I'm going to use this cutting board to cut up some parsley in just a second.
What's your best advice for cleaning the flat top?
Okay, so the black top, as in like the grill black top outside, or that. The trick is you want to get things before they stick on, which is the thing, but that's not always possible. But what I like to do, if it's on my burner and it's really hard to get off, if you put a little bit of water on there, like cover it with water, and you turn your stove on low to like the lowest setting, it's going to heat up that water and almost kind of boil it a little bit on the top. And you don't do it for very long. You just want to do it where it comes off. And then you should be able to come through and scrape that off. Also, they make little razors for it where you can scrape the top off with it. And so, I mean, I find I clean mine up every single, like right after we're done using the kitchen, because I hate when things get stuck on it, especially like sugar. Sugar can caramelize on there and it's really hard. But just making sure you're cleaning it right away, and then don't be afraid to put water on there, let it soak, let everything loosen it up. Good scrub. You want to use like a sponge that has, you don't want any like a bristle that can scratch it, but one of those plastic sponges that have like a really good scrubbing. That's what you want to use on it. I have these things. They're like, had them forever. They're these like cute little cats, and they are like, they work so well. I'll add those to our Amazon storefront because that's where I got them, and they are amazing. They're the best scrubby sponges I have ever used. I bought them at a whim from a pop-up Amazon bookstore, you know, like those little at Christmas time, and I got them, and I have loved them ever since. And I rebought them, but each sponge lasts about a year of like really good like scrubbing use. So here, got this perfect golden kind of crumb on there. We're gonna put it grease side down. That allows it to crisp up a little bit better. We got our first batches here. We're gonna put our next ones in. We'll fry these up, and then our cream sauce, well, our tortellini will be done soon. Like I said, tortellini only takes about 4 to 5 minutes to cook up. You know, on the box, it says ready in 3 minutes. It always takes longer than 3 minutes. I will say 3 minutes, and yes, your pasta is a little soft, but you want that filling inside the tortellini to be nice and tender too, and that takes it a little bit longer.
Question. Can you go over the seasoning?
Yes. The seasoning for the pork, we started off with 1.5 cups of flour. Then we added in a tablespoon of garlic salt, a tablespoon of onion powder, a tablespoon of paprika, a tablespoon of parsley, and then 2 tablespoons of this. It's the same as Mrs. Dash's, but it's the Kirkland brand of it. Seasoning blend. It has in everything. It's really nice. And then a tablespoon of oregano. We mixed all of that up. Then we dredged our pork in it. And then I added after we dredged all of them, but before we did the egg, I added in about 1.5 cups of panko breadcrumbs, seasoned panko breadcrumbs. Just delicious. It makes a nice crunch on them. A lot of great flavor. Okay. These are getting to be just where I want them. So I'm going to turn this off. Grab out my colander here. And we're going to strain them, and then we're going to put them right back in this pot. You want to shake all that extra water off. And then we're going to cook them in our sauce right back in here. So just dump it right back in. And we're going to add in about, I want to say a half a stick of butter for this, because you want them to all kind of coat up in the butter. We're going to let it melt first. Make sure you stir, because your burner is going to be a little bit hot and you don't want your noodles to stick right to the bottom of the pasta. And then let me grab my cream, my garlic salt, grab my parsley, and my Parmesan. And we need my knife. I'll move over here. So we're going to add in about 1/2 cup of cream. And you want heavy cream. Half and half just won't work, or milk, it's too thin. You need it to thicken up. And so it is definitely a richer meal, but you need the cream. It has to be heavy whipping cream. Otherwise, your pasta will be too runny. And I don't like to add flour to my cream-based pastas because I think it just doesn't turn out well. Before we chop up our parsley, let's give these a quick turn. They are cooking up beautifully. So they have this nice kind of dark golden color to it. That is from the paprika. It really gives it a nice golden brown color to it. So it's just kind of perfect for like frying up. That just really helps elevate it, gives you so you don't have like a blonde fry. We're going to add in about a teaspoon and a half of garlic salt. So we're just going to do a couple really good shakes all the way around. You don't need a lot of salt in here because it's going to have the Parmesan cheese, which will add more saltiness to it. So don't over salt it right now. But we will add our Parmesan cheese towards the end, not right away, so it doesn't burn or stick to the bottom of the pot. I have it on a low, on a 2 simmering. And then we're going to chop up. I've got my fresh parsley here. We're going to chop this up to add in there. I'll add a nice little fresh herby flavor to it without being overpowering. There we go. And just give it up. I like to mince it up nicely so that my kids, again, they're not trying to think I'm poisoning them with vegetables. But when it's minced up small, it's not as like leafy noticeable, and so it kind of really blends in well with the texture. I'm going to put half of it in now to let out the flavor, and then the rest will be for a garnish. So we've got half of it going in right now. There we go. And now we're going to add on our Parmesan cheese. I'm going to sprinkle the Parmesan cheese over the top first, and then we're going to let it sit and heat up, and then we'll mix it in. That way it will warm up and heat up, warm up nicely, so it'll melt in easier versus if you mix it right away. So we're going to cover the whole kind of top of it with Parmesan cheese. It's going to be about a half a cup. And we're going to let that kind of sit and warm up with that residual heat. And then we'll mix it in. Let's check on our. Beautiful. These guys are ready. Look at that nice golden color. And you can see that the grease bubbling off of it, but that's what's going to crisp it up so nicely. And you always want to put them either on a drying rack, or I always just use my paper towels and it will soak it up. That's going to leave that breading crispy versus soggy. If you just lay it on top of itself, it's going to be soggy. Let's put our last ones in. Let's move this guy around. Okay. And my oil, I try to keep it to about a 350 when I'm cooking at. So it's olive oil. It won't burn or smoke, but I prefer olive oil. I like the flavor, and I like the heart healthy aspect of olive oil. But you could use any oil you wanted to for frying. This is just what I prefer. Okay. Let's go check on our crisp. I think we can take that out, and then we should be about ready to serve up our lunch. Grab my pot holders, trivet here. You can just smell the lovely, oh, it smells so delicious. I can see the peach gel coming up towards the top of our crisp, and it looks amazing. It's so delicious. Peach crisp is going to be fantastic. So we're going to put it right here. This is we used 6 fresh peaches from our local peach stand. We peeled them. We tossed them with some lemon juice, sugar, cinnamon, and kind of boiled them up a little bit until that sugar could really turn into kind of a syrup. Then we made a delicious crumb using oats, brown sugar, butter, flour, cinnamon, and a pinch of nutmeg. And we layered it over that, and we baked it up, and it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be delicious. Serve it with a big dollop of whipped cream. Okay. Now I'm going to see we've got our cheese. It started to melt it, or started to melt, not melted. We're going to give it a good mix now. Put it in there. There we go. And the reason I do that is that way it will be melted when we stir it in, but it won't stick and burn to the bottom of our pan. I've turned it off, and let's serve up our, grab our plate. And I'm going to grab some whipped topping because that's going to go perfect on the crumb. Okay. Let's get ready for this. Got to get all my places in order. We'll flip that real quick. Let's flip these real quick, and then we're going to serve up. I think this guy is ready. Look at that nice golden crumb on, or crisp up on there. Beautiful. Perfect. So we'll let those crisp up, and let's serve up our lunch. Okay, so we have our cheesy Parmesan tortellini in a lovely kind of cream sauce with some garlic, salt, and things. We'll top it with a little bit of fresh parsley here. We have our pan-fried pork chop here, which will have, it's like a lovely seasoning. It's just nice, great crunch to it. Will be absolutely delicious. And then for dessert, we have this ooey gooey, delicious crisp. Look at that nice kind of crisp thing there. You can see it filling up there with those peaches at the bottom. So delicious. And then we're going to do a nice dollop of whipped topping on the top for just a little extra. That creaminess will cut into the peach crumb, which will be so delicious. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. We do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to that link, search for what we cooked for, and then watch that video again at home. We also have our Amazon storefront, so if you saw any of the cooking gadgets that you asked and wanted to know about, you could go look there. I try to make some lists up on there, but that way you guys can find out what we're using at home as well, and we do make a small profit from it. But again, thank you guys so much for watching us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.